Okay, so I may be guilty of jokes at Porsche's expense over the past couple of years that they may or may not be very good at extracting lots of extra dollars out of us car guys and gals for options. And I'm not talking about things like fancy wheels and brakes. I'm talking about matching the color of your car to seat belts or matching the color of your car to the key, which really didn't happen in the case of this chalk, which I'm disappointed about, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, it turns out expensive options are not the only thing in the Porsche world, and my proof of this is GTS. We've driven many of them over the past couple of years. We went all the way to Sweden to drive that Cayenne, and then we've driven the 911, and effectively what they are is not a 904 GTS, and man, Santa Maria Madre de Dios, I'm still working on getting one of those. I'll get back to you on that. But anyway, GTS is in today's world is lots of options grouped together to make a more value-conscious Porsche. And it's not called like Value Package A like they do in the Ford world. It is GTS across the range. Well, guess whose turn it is today? The 718 Boxster and Cayman. So we're going to use this incredibly lovely chalk 718 Boxster to stand in for two cars to understand what makes up the GTS in the 718 range. Let's kick this off with the biggest change between a box standard 718 and a GTS 718. It does not matter whether it's a Cayman or a Boxster. And just as a hint vice here, pretty much everything else we're going to discuss in this episode can be had on a basic 718 or an S derivation of a 718. You just have to pay more money for it. Here it's fitted as standard. So back to the engine. So there are two major changes that they add to the donor engine from the 2.5S. And what they do is they change the turbocharger. Biggest change there is the compressor wheel goes from 64 mils to 67 mils, ups the boost pressure from 16.7 to 18.1 psi. Then the intake manifold changes. So basically it's a bit more freer flowing. And one thing you have to remember from the 991.2 when they went to the turbochargers with the flat six there, this is not just two cylinders chopped off. They also changed where the intake manifold goes into this engine. It's in the front because of the packaging in this specific application. Anyway, what does all this translate to in terms of output? Well, it's a pretty big jump from the base car. It goes to 365 horsepower, so that's 65 over the base car and 15 over the S. But then the torque, and this is where I get into something rather unusual and depressing for me. The torque changes based on the transmission, not that we already don't have enough with the faster shifting PDK. And just as an aside, I don't care whether it's faster shifting unless you are drawing a paycheck from Ferrari, Porsche, or like Corvette team. You are not going to be able to use that difference as a person like us. Anyway, the torque in the manual, which this is in the car we are going to drive, 309 pound-feet comes in at 1900 RPM, which is great for a flat 4 engine. Stays flat all the way to 5000 RPM. And then with the PDK, hate to admit it, but 317 pounds of torque. Again, 1900 to 5000 RPM. While I get very depressed about that, I do have to tell you that the sport exhaust is fitted as standard. So basically the theme is more air, in and out. I know I kicked off this episode by joking around about my previous jokes of Porsche and their option lists, but I also mentioned something about value, and that really comes to pass here. Now, we've seen this brew of GTS before in other Porsches, both Cayennes as well as 911s, and usually what makes up the brew is a lot of Alcantara and embroidery of the GTS logo on the headrests. Here, there's a couple of special things going on. Now, yes, there is the Alcantara on the seats, Alcantara on the armrests, as well as on the steering wheel. And while we're talking about the steering wheel, that is the 360 millimeter diameter wheel, which is the sport wheel. It's optional on all other 718s. It is fitted as standard on a GTS, Cayman, and Boxster. Then there is an option fitted to this car. And full disclosure, man, but it is a package only on GTSs, and what it really breaks down to is contrasting stitching on the seats, the door panels, and the dashboard. Then more Alcantara, as if you didn't have enough already. So not just the armrest, but also on the door panel. Then there's leather, so not Alcantara, but real leather on the top of the door panels, top of the dash. But then the pièce de résistance, and that would be seat belts that match the exterior of your car. Now you would think I picked this one because of the chalk exterior. No, I really picked it because of this GTS option package. And a little note about that, one could forego this GTS option package and go with extended leather and make this contrasting stitching anything you want. However, that would cost a lot more. Unlike the engine, there are two major themes going on here. Number one, pretty much everything I'm about to tell you can be fitted to a base or an S718. Yes, for a lot of extra money, but it can be done. And number two, there's a lot of pilfering going on from the 911 Carrera. So with that, let's jump right into it. Porsche torque vectoring fitted as standard to all GTS. PASM fitted as standard to all GTS. Now, what does that mean in practice? That means that the ride height is 10 mils lower from the factory. Now, this car is fitted with a lot of options. We will cover that in the full first drive review. But this one has the sport suspension, which means it rides 20 mils lower. Then let's move on to the brakes. The diameter grows to 330 mils in the front, 299 in the rear. 4 piston calipers in the front. Those are pilfered from the 911 Carrera. 4 piston calipers in the rear. Now, I don't know why one would do this, but it can be fitted with carbon ceramic rotors. They grow to 350 mils in the front and 350 mils in the rear. Then there are the wheels and tires, and it's somewhat comical when you think about the size of this car. 2 35s in the front, 2 35s in the rear. And then there are the wheels, yes, 20 inches, but once again, pilfered from the 911 Carrera. Okay, so back to the hangar to discuss the most important number, and that would be the weight. Now the best way to describe this, it's not quite heavyweight, definitely not lightweight, perhaps the middleweight Champine. The car you saw in this tech review, that stunning chalk Boxster GTS, that one is fitted with a manual transmission. That is 3,031 pounds. Pretty good, right? Let's say for the sake of discussion, it was built with the PDK, which most of them are going to be fitted with. Well, that's 3,096 pounds. Still pretty good. Now, the big thing to understand is this is basically the same whether it's the convertible that we had or the hardtop Cayman. So before the coming full first drive review, I do want to leave you with a question that has to do with both cars. Which one would you choose? Because I know we always debate about this. The Boxster is a girl's car, or the Cayman you can't, you know me, I can't get a sunroof in the Cayman, so I piss and moan about that, and you guys have your other complaints about the Cayman. Anyway, I want to know which one you would choose, but most importantly, what would you be doing with it on a daily basis? And what I'm trying to find out here is, are you going to take it on a track all the time, or is it the daily? And be honest. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, Motoman TV on Word, Motoman TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And in the interim, before we get to that full first drive review, I want to say a huge obrigado to Maria and the rest of the team at Fantasca Vineyards. These people were so nice to let me take these two cars, this and the coming Carrera T, and put it anywhere in their vineyard. And believe me, I got it deep into the vineyard. So guys, I cannot thank you enough for opening your stunning location to my rather fun cars. Until I see you next time, bis später.